Welcome to the Vicon Online University. This is the Polygon 4 class, session 6, the last one in the set. Today we're going to cover muscles, data views, and export options. Today our goals are to learn how to add muscles to the workspace to an existing skeleton. We're going to discuss wrap objects and how you can adjust muscle properties. We'll talk about data views and how you can run them as a dynamic hyperlink. And we'll also be talking about exporting, how you can export a Polygon report to either Polygon Viewer, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, or another third-party software like Adobe. So how we're going to go about doing this, to view any muscles or other objects, you must have a musculoskeletal model added into your project. How you can do this is import a C3D file, click on the subject's name in the data bar, and then under the Data tab, load a subject model. There are a couple of them that come installed with Polygon in the Nexus suite, so you want to browse to that folder to find your musculoskeletal model templates. Choose which VST you're going to apply, and then you'll want to click yes on both of the pop-up boxes, replace skeleton and scale the kinematic model. Any of these muscles in this model are going to be based on Zajak's 1989 model. You do have options to change any preferences for importing these musculoskeletal models. How you can get to those in Polygon is go to your File menu and then go to Options, where we've already made adjustments to our workspace. Then you can edit the Scale Imported Kinematic Models. If you select this option, it's going to automatically scale the model when you add that musculoskeletal model template in. So you won't have that pop-up box. Deselecting it is going to give you that pop-up, so you can specify the scaling behavior every time a model is loaded. The other option is going to be update the kinematic models. Again, selecting this will remove all of the data from the existing model and update it with the new model template. However, the name of the subject folder won't change, so you need to be aware of that going forward. Deselecting this option will, again, enable that pop-up box so you can specify the update behavior every time you load a file. Once you apply a musculoskeletal model to a subject, you will see that in the data bar there's going to be a new level node that's added to that subject's hierarchy, and it'll show muscle set, like in the bottom right picture down here. That muscle set will contain muscle models, which comes from that VST file to help tell Polygon how to manage those forces. Again, that's based on that Zajak model. It'll also include wrap objects, which are objects that help shape the muscle. And so something might be a sphere that goes through the middle of the joint center, because we know muscles aren't going to go through that object. And then it'll also have a muscles node. Every muscle has to have an origin and an insertion, we know that. And these muscle nodes are going to help describe the morphology of the muscle. The shape will be determined by the wrap objects that are created in the model. And then the force characteristics are coming straight from that Zajak model. And you can actually manually adjust the length, insertion points, etc. in the muscle properties. So let's go ahead and go over to Polygon and I'll show you some of this stuff. Okay, so here is a Polygon report that I've just created for session 6 for us. I've gone ahead and loaded walking 1, and walking 2. That way we've got 3 trials in there. And created some basic knee angle, hip angle, and a movie overlay links so that we can talk about those in a little bit. So the first thing that we want to do is actually load our musculoskeletal model. So right here we've got walking 2. We scroll down to our person, we click on the subject name Colin, and then you'll see this Load Subject Model button has become active. So that's where you go ahead and select that. And then you want to browse to that Vicon Polygon 4 musculoskeletal models folder. So on my computer, it's under must be under Program Files. So here, there's a models folder, and then there's also musculoskeletal model templates. It's important to note that those are different, and only these ones that have the MMM are going to be the musculoskeletal models. If you load in just a standard VST, it's not going to come with any of that muscle model information loaded. So in our Nexus sample data, we have the plug and gate full body, so we'll select this one. We'll go ahead and apply that. I said that there would be 2 pop-up buttons to replace the skeleton, so we'll say yes. And then scale the kinematic model to our model, so we'll say yes again. Then you can see that on the left-hand side, we've suddenly got this new node, the muscle set node. So again, we've got the muscle models, that SageX model, the wrap objects, and the muscles that are loaded into it. If you wanted to change any preferences for this, again, you go to File, Options. Here's where those 2 are. Automatically scale the imported kinematic model, or automatically update the kinematic model. So those are the 2 that you can select or deselect. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine the way they were. All right. So now if you want to look at that, we can just load our subject into the workspace. So I'm just going to load the display set. So now you can see that I've got sticks, markers, and my skeleton. I'm actually going to go through and hide the markers and the sticks for our purposes for today. And then if I want to display one of the muscles, I can just click on it and then select any of them. Say I'll do the bicep set. So then you can see how those populate. Okay. Oops, sorry guys. I'm apparently click happy today. So you've got the muscle. If you didn't want one, like if I'd like to remove this one, I can just click it and say remove selected objects up in the 3D pane, and it'll remove it. Again, these types of menus work the same way as any of the kinematic data or the context data. If I want only the right context, I can click on the column title. If I want them both, I can click again. If I want just left, again, just clicking on the column title will help distinguish those. If I want to display one of the wrap objects, I can go to Wrap Objects. These are the ones that are automatically loaded into that model. So if I want to display the left elbow, you can see, if I zoom in a little bit, that it's created this sphere through each of the elbows. And that's going to be the wrap object because we know that a muscle is going to go around that and not through that space. Okay, so visualizing those model objects, like we said, you expand the subject name and the muscle set in the data bar. You can double click any of those objects and they will appear in the workspace. In this particular figure, muscles are shown in blue and wrap objects in green. You can edit any of those colors if you like. How we had ours, I believe the muscles were purple, and then the wrap objects come in green by default. If you want to hide any of the objects of a specified type, you can right-click and hide objects just like we did with the markers and the sticks. You can also do that with wrap objects or muscles. To remove any single object, like I showed you, you just select the object and click the Remove button in the 3D tab. And if you've got muscles in there, you can actually go through and edit the muscle properties. How to access those, you click on the muscle and then you can say Edit Object in the muscle attributes. So we'll go through and do that. Through that dialog, you can manipulate the origin and insertion point definitions of the model. You can go through each muscle individually by just selecting it and then editing it. You can also add any EMG visualization if you've collected those corresponding EMG channels. And then where it's got that color range there in the middle, you can actually adjust that so as it becomes more highly activated, it can change color so you can watch that throughout the trial. You do have that dynamic range, and you can choose either gradual color, so it'll fade through as it's activated, or you can say a threshold, where it gets above, say, 30%, I want it to change color to this color. You can also go through and add additional muscle wrapping. It'll have a drop-down list of all of the available wraps, and then you can add those to each muscle accordingly. It's important to note that if you are going to make these adjustments, that you realize that you're altering the model itself. And so if you make alterations to that model, then it's no longer the validated version. And so that's just something to remember going forward. Like this schematic shows, the gastrocnemius muscles are connected by their respective EMG channels, and during playback you can see that it's changed from blue to red, or purple to red in this case. And so if we look at that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove these wrap objects by clicking the remove button. And I don't need that muscle, so you can go through those. I'm going to go ahead and add medial gastroc. Get really close so you guys can see it. And then if I open up my attributes pane, I'm selected on this one. You can see it's got the color. The default is blue. The activation color is going to fade into red. This is also where those wrap objects were shown in green. So if I want to go in and edit that, I can just click this edit object, and I'm going to get this pop-up box. Left medial gastroc. It's got the intrinsic qualities, but you can, again, adjust those if necessary. EMG channel, I actually have left calf, so I'm going to assign that. And rather than going with a gradual color, I'm going to say a threshold. That way it's a little more obvious for our purposes. And I'm going to say 30%. So now it'll be blue, or this purpley color, because it's, excuse me, it's illustrated with red striations for muscle. So it's going to turn from the purpley blue into the red. And if I wanted to add a muscle wrap, I could. It's got all of these options for you. Again, because it's variable, you just want to make sure that you're picking a wrap that makes sense. You wouldn't add a left elbow to a medial gastroc. That doesn't make sense for your model. So I'll go ahead and say OK. And then I'm going to make us follow that. I'm going to go for gait cycles. Sorry, I was playing earlier. So if I scroll through this slowly, you can see it's red, blue, red, okay. So those associated EMG channels. And again, you can do that any way that you want. If you want it to go from hot pink to fluorescent yellow, you can. It's completely up to you guys. So we'll go ahead and move on to data views. For those of you that used Polygon 3.5, data views is the newer version of scripts. And so what this is like a dynamic hyperlink. So you can create a view that you like with a set of graphs or reports or a movie. anything that you want to visualize, and then save that data view. And similar to a macro, you can apply it to other trials that are in your report. To add a view, all you have to do is create the view that you want to save with multiple panes. Click on the Save Pane button, or if you want to save all of them, you can save all panes. And then you're going to name your view. And if you want it to be available for any selectable trials, then you click Selectable. If you want it to be only for the trial that you're working on, then you leave it as Fixed. You'll now be able to access this data view in the Data tab under Open Views or Manage Views. To recreate this view using any other trials, all you have to do is select the trial in the data bar, and then Open View and drop down and select the view that you prefer. And just a reminder, you can use these for workspace, graphs, movies, or any combination thereof. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and close our attributes. So if I wanted to look at I'm going to unhide all of my stuff really quickly. So if I wanted to look at this view, the skeleton with the markers and sticks, for any of them, I can just go to Save Pane up here at the top. It's going to give my pop-up screen. Okay, again, selectable, you can use any trial that you can click on. Fixed is only going to lock it to this trial that I'm working with. So I'll go ahead and make it selectable and say OK. And then, since I'm currently working under that one, if I go, so that's walking 2, if I click on walking 1, I can go to Open Views and click that one. And it's going to go ahead and load that trial with that view. And you can see he's walking in the opposite direction. So I can also do this one, and it should switch directions on me again for the opposite direction. So you can see that. The variations in position where it is accounted for by how far they are into the normalization scheme. So in the very beginning of the gait cycle is in different spots for the different trials. So that's why it moves a little bit. Data views are very helpful for displaying your graphs, but if it's something where you need all of your skeletons to be in the exact same position, it might be worth using a global hyperlink because you have a little more control over where it starts. Any of these views can be dynamic. If you save it while the trial is playing, then it will actually open it up again as it plays. I can also do, earlier I added in this movie overlay. It's just the 2D digital video with a 3D skeleton overlay. And so again, I can save that. And then I can switch trials and open the same view, and it will switch for me. Okay. The reason this one didn't adjust the physical position is because the camera was in the same spot for each trial, but you will notice that it did shift the position during the trial. So the final thing that we want to cover today is exporting options. How you can export your report to use it in other softwares or anything like that. You have several options in this. If you export a report through just the Export Report button, it actually will save a copy of each file associated with the report so that it can open on any computer that does or does not have Polygon. it saves this Polygon Viewer software so that you can open it without having any sort of license for Polygon. You can navigate through any of the links, they will all be active. You can watch the videos, you just won't be able to make changes to it. You can also export a report into a compressed or an uncompressed folder. If you're going to use a compressed folder, you have to use 7-zip is the program that Polygon is looking for. And since it zips with a particular program, the recipient of the report also has to have 7-zip. Because of this loophole, I don't suggest this one. I definitely suggest or recommend that you export as an uncompressed folder and then just click on your folder and compress it or send it to a compressed folder using your Windows Explorer. That way, anybody that gets your report will be able to access it, especially if you're passing anything on to physicians or PTs or anybody else that needs to make clinical decisions. Having fewer hoops to jump through can make that a little easier. So let's go and actually do that one real quick, and I'll just show you. So under your Home tab, we have Export Report. You can just click on that. It's going to give you an uncompressed or a compressed. Again, just as a general rule, I prefer using the uncompressed. It's just an awful lot easier for me. So if I say Export Report Uncompressed, then I can pick my folder. And I'm going to create a new folder to send everything to. So we'll call that Session 6. It's going to create the new directory in that subfolder. And this will take a second. So now that I've got that, okay, just making sure that sent that where I hoped it sent it. Polygon 4, Session 6 export. It's created Session 6, which is the title of the report. And then these are all of the files that are required to run the report. Okay, missing any of these will prevent you from being able to run it. But you can see that it's copied in even the AVI files. It's got this Polygon Viewer software in here, so I can launch this. And now you can navigate around the report, but you can't make any changes to it. Okay? So that's there. Again, if I was going to send this to somebody, I would just right-click on it and send it to compress a zip folder. It'll zip it up nice and clean. Anybody can open it from there, just extract all to get to it. It'll just make things very, very simple. Alright, you also have options to export into Excel. As long as you have Microsoft Excel installed on the machine that you're working on, you can export the trial-specific data into an Excel format. There are a couple of different templates available for you to export to. You can do either the trial that you're working on, or you can select multiple trials. And once you export these trials into Excel, it's going to use an Excel template, whichever one you are pointing it to. And so again, that's under the File Options menu. And then it's got that Excel template file you can see right here in the middle. And so that's where it's going to automatically send any of your data. Just a note, try not to write that extension in manually. Just go ahead and browse to it. It'll make life a little bit easier. And that default Excel template that just comes when you download Polygon is called the Polygon Gate Report. It's going to look for any temporal parameters, joint kinematics, moments, powers. Any plug-in gate information is going to be automatically sent to Excel from there. So if we wanted to do that, you can export Excel. It's going to be this one. And you can say choose trials and then select all of them that you like. This is where you're going to pick that folder. I'm going to build on the same folder that we just created a couple minutes ago, the session 6 stuff. Those are the 3 trials, so I can just say OK. Documents, Vicon, Polygon, session 6. So then if you look at those, oh, that's why. Here you go. So you can see it automatically loads in temporal parameters, the gate parameters for the trial, the actual data is going to be in there, the rotations, moments, powers, and all of this you guys can definitely edit and create your own Excel template to work from. That way it's going to be exported your way every single time. All you have to do is make sure that you specify that path up here in your file options. So I've got this one. Again, just make sure that your Polygon Gate Report is in there. You can also send anything to Microsoft Word. That way you'll have a hard copy view. How that works is your text pane and any links become exported. And so it is important to tell Polygon how you want it to treat the export hyperlinks. And how you're going to do this is you right click on the link and you say export options. It's going to bring this pop-up over, and then you can decide whether you want it to export that hyperlink or not, how you'd like it to be formatted. If it's a movie or a 3D movie option, adjusting this bar is going to be the time in the trial. And so wherever yours is when you set your link is going to be the default, but again, you can adjust that if you want to. Any hyperlink data can be exported with or without the actual text attached to it. The text is not necessary to go with it, and the figure locations and those captions you can add through this option. To get to those exports, you go to the Home tab, click Export Word, then you can choose whether you want it as an XML, a doc, or a docx document. You can also add any page numbers, headers, footers, stuff like that through those report options. And if you've already built a Word template that you want everything exported into, just like we just did with the Excel, you can use a Word template. Any report that you export to Word is going to be exported based on how it reads in the text pane. So it'll go top to bottom, left to right. If when Polygon is exporting text and then it comes to a hyperlink, it will stop the text, insert the hyperlink image, and then carry on with the text until it reaches the next hyperlink, and then it'll insert the hyperlink image and then continue down the page. If you have any 3D workspaces, they're going to be exported with a white background rather than black, just to make them a little more obvious. and to save you on ink. So if we want to look at that, so here I've got, again, these 3 little hyperlinks. So if we export to a Word document, and it does want 2007, I can export that. But actually, before I do, I'd like to go ahead and show you these export options. You just click on the link. This is that particular hyperlink. Again, if you look down here at the bottom, as I move it, it's going to make changes. You can say the start, the end, the middle, or the current frame. So I'm just going to go with that one. Again, you can access that through any of them. Since this is a 3D movie option, that's where it's going to end up. If I want to make changes to this one, since that's my 3D movie option, again, that's not going to do it. You need to do it down here. Okay, so now that I've gone through those, let's go back and actually export. Excuse me. So it's got the folder that it's going to send my document to. I do want it to open the file when it's done exporting so I can look at it. If I had a template, this is where I would specify. And any page numbers, if you want any of those, or headers or footers. So I'm going to go ahead and export. I've got my Polygon 4 VOU, my knee angles, and since that was a hyperlink, it went ahead and put those graphs in there for me. You will see that they are just like any picture image, so you can make changes and adjustments to that as needed. Hip angles was the next graph, so there's that link. And then I had a 3D movie overlay. This is the one you'll notice that the background went from black to white. And it's a little hard to see because I've got the overlay with the sticks. But as you start those exports, you can get familiar with the options that make your reports the easiest to read. Go ahead and close that. You also have options to export, send your report to either a PDF or a web page. These are both going to have the exact same options, export options as the Word, whether you want the hyperlinks treated the same or not. If you're exporting to a web, it's going to go to either an HTML file or an MHT file. You do get to specify that. And if you go to a PDF, you can just do the Home tab. Again, same options as Word, but it will just be non-editable. So if I would like to take this into, let's just say, an HTML web page, I can. Again, I get the same pop-up box. It's going to store it in that same folder with a different extension. I do want to open it when it's done so I can view it. Sorry, that just popped up on my other page. So again, it's got the text. Every time it comes to a link, it sends out the link images. And got all the way down. And if I would like to export to a PDF, again, same pop-up. Text with my hyperlinks and the movie overlay. So as a review, what we've done today is we've talked about the muscles, how to add a musculoskeletal model to your subject, and then add those muscles into the workspace view. We've discussed the wrap objects and how those can change the muscle properties, how you can visualize those or hide them. We looked at data views and how you can run those as dynamic hyperlinks. And we talked about exporting to Polygon Viewer, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, and our third-party software that we talked about today was Adobe.